Hi, you're listening to God, Ghosts, and Government, a weekly conversation with Senator Kim Jackson, where she'll reflect on her journey as an Episcopal priest, farmer, legislator, and much more. I'm your host, Sharitha J., and I'm honored to share this space with you. Let's begin. Hey, it's your girl Sharitha J, and we are back for another episode of God, Goats, and Government. Hey, Senator Kim Jackson.
Hey Shretha, what's up, girl?
It's another week, and I hear it's another dollar too, because it's budget week. So,
That's very clever, very clever.
so as we know, budget week looks a little different at the Capitol. Well, you guys weren't actually in session this week. Am I
That's
correct?
right. That's right. Yeah. So we're not in session. Monday was Martin Luther King Day, and then Tuesday through Friday, we had a host of hearings. Just back to back, hours and hours of agency directors, commissioners coming in and talking about their budget needs. It it was not for the faint of heart, shall I say. Just think about remember being in college and hearing a lecture that lasted for an hour. Now multiply that. Sure that you hear that now, but multiply your least favorite professor's lecture, multiply that by 10, and then for 4 days in a row. And that's what you got.
Riveting, exciting. Oh,
Exactly.
10 out of 10 stars. Well, because of this insight, I think it's a great way for us to conclude the week. You had something to look forward to. For those of you who don't know, with God, Goats, and Government, we record the episodes on a Friday to give ourselves an opportunity to truly work on a weekly recap. And so with this, having a budget week is Senator Jackson so eloquently described as just an exciting time. We thought it would be a great opportunity for us to invite in a fresh voice and for us to not only do a weekly recap, but to kind of recap this podcast. Would you say, Senator Jackson?
Yeah, I think that's right. I realize that, some folks may be new listeners. I hope they're new listeners. I
Mhm.
mean, most of our listeners should be new listeners. And so we should probably, press rewind and back up and explain who we are and what we're doing and what the hell is happening under this gold dome in a more you aren't an insider. So let's bring you on the inside.
Excellent. So, what better way to bring you guys on the inside than to invite in a true insider, Erin Cassel, who is Senator Jackson's chief of staff. And we want to just bring Erin into the space so she can ask some questions and give us some insight as well, because I think we've been doing this a little too long that we just keep it rolling. So, we want to invite Erin into the space. Hey, Erin.
Hey,
Hey, welcome.
Welcome.
hey, nice to see you guys and glad to be here.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you. You're our first guest of the season and our first guest in a while, too. So
No
thanks for joining
pressure.
us.
No.
So, Erin, we're excited to have you. And as Senator Jackson's chief of staff, we know that you have some insights. As we said, Senator Jackson just said, okay, we've been doing this and we just kind of hop in and keep it rolling. But you're new to the team. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. And when you say I'm new to the team, I'm new to this entire world, completely new, totally fresh, as of August. I joined Team Jackson in August 1st. And when I accepted the position as her new chief of staff, I gave up a lot of my former life, but I'm still in it a little bit. But I'm a cellist here in Atlanta, and used to run two really big cello. I'm a teacher, two cello studios for kids 4 through however old. Um, but I got really intrigued last year when I came down to the Capitol for the first time ever. I am not a native Georgian. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I came with a group of All Saints and St. Luke's advocates who basically come and lobby, I guess, for
Mhm.
all intents and purposes, for really great causes. And I joined them one day at the Capitol, and uh, my mind was like blown by all the stuff I didn't know. And so then I like started a quest to learn everything I needed to know that you get taught in like eighth grade government, but every state's a little different. And I had no idea about Georgia's laws and regulations and processes. And so um, then I decided, everyone else needs to know all this stuff too. So talked to Senator Jackson, and we started this How It Works series on her social media to help people kind of just remember. And we're adults, and we're supposed to know all of this.
I was gonna
And
say, be careful now, Erin.
so we're
Supposed to know?
supposed to, and we don't. The vast majority of people, y'all, I was getting my allergy shot this morning, and the woman was like, I can go to the Capitol. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, like no one knows.
I mean, Aaron, to be honest, I have family members who think I work in Washington, D.C. So, like, the knowledge levels are not high here, and it's
Don't
totally my
you?
fault. I mean,
Do you
it's
not work in DC?
so to be clear, it is kind of my fault that I promoted that myth by being so unavailable that people just assume in my family, Kim's not available. She doesn't come to any of the family functions between January and March, so she must be in DC. So I've probably promoted that, but yeah, there's a lot of and it's not accidental, right? Like it's purposely nebulous. It's purposely complicated to discourage folks from showing up and really pushing, I think, state government to do the right thing. So, if you are one of those people who don't know what the hell is happening, know that it's by design, and we're here to try to help demystify it.
Mm. So, Erin, you talked about how it works. Can we touch base on that? Because I find this series that you all are doing actually very important. As Senator Jackson just said, okay, she clearly doesn't work in DC. I'm I am so saddened by this. But that gives us a little bit of insight in which there's an assumption here that people know that there's a difference between state and federal. So with that in mind, could you share a little bit more about how it works?
So one of the biggest things in our How It Works series was going back to the basics of differentiating between local, state, and federal. Local being like city council, like where do we even start? Who are all these people? What is a I actually should probably add, what is a commissioner to my question for you, Senator Jackson,
Yes.
because that name gets thrown around a lot, and there's a lot of commissioners.
Yeah,
And
and they're not all the same either, because you could be a local commissioner or a state commissioner. So yeah, we can totally talk that out.
And then so we started there, and then we kind of worked our way through like what is session? It runs, how long does it run? How long are our state senators and state representatives actually down at the Capitol? And then what do they do during session? And where are their offices? I didn't know their offices weren't all at the Capitol. They're across the street. Where, and I can go there? I'm allowed to walk in? I had no idea. So we started with the questions that I had no idea about. And then we created the answers in an easy format. And so I think the biggest one I wanted to talk about, because we are in session now, is and I just had this conversation 2 hours ago with someone who didn't know that they could come see us and see Senator Jackson and set up a meeting, or walk into the Capitol and watch what's going on.
So, Erin, what have you been most surprised by with doing this series?
Oh gosh. Um, the pace at which a bill moves. Um,
Is
I guess
that fast or slow, Aaron? I don't know. I'm confused.
I mean, I think something that I have learned along in this process, and I hope that we are sharing with others, is that, I mean, how a bill becomes a bill, little thing we learned, in school. And it makes it seem like it just kind of trucks along, and then all the committees, those words are thrown out like, oh, it goes through a committee, and then all of a sudden we have a vote on the floor. And the process for getting your idea into words, into a proposed bill, into an assigned committee or subcommittee, and going through a hearing in the committee or the subcommittee and then the committee and then the vote, and then all of that is dependent, the vote, it might not even pass out of committee. It might stall and just stay there before it goes to, it might be a whole year before it actually gets to the floor, which is where we are with Senator Jackson's bills. That process to me was something I didn't quite grasp until I really sat down and dug out the answers, and by talking to all the people in our office, and now by experiencing it and watching it happen. How slow is the answer, Senator? It's slow. It's real slow and hard.
Yeah,
Really
I mean,
hard.
that's the irony though, right? Is like I was confused by what your answer was going to be because it can be that it can be super, super slow. Like you were going through my files and came up with a bill that I dropped around IDs and making sure that people who are incarcerated get IDs. I think that was my very first year, Sharita, that we talked about that. I'm sure like 4
Oh
podcast
yeah.
seasons
Yeah.
ago, right? That bill never even had a hearing. And so, like, talk about not moving at all. And then, there are other bills where Sharitha and I, like last season, we talked about, hey, this is coming up. And then not only would it have come up, like, the trans issues, like, not only will that bill like show up, it'll also be like, oh, and by the way, it's already passed out the Senate. Um, and we just found out about it 2 weeks ago. So the variety of how bills move in this legislature is also just baffling and unpredictable. I think that's the other piece of it.
Can you guys speak to a little bit the unpredictability? Like, is it based on the popularity of an issue? I help me. I'm just a citizen. You know, help me to understand what motivates the movement of bills under the gold dome.
I mean, we can all guess. Erin, what's your guess about that?
I mean, the majority party of any house is who dictates what goes to what committee and how it goes through and what the vote is. And so if they vote quickly on a bill that they like, then it goes to the floor quickly, and then they vote on the floor quickly, and there you go. Signed, sealed, delivered, done.
Yeah, or quickly on a bill that they don't like and they don't want to get a lot of light around. Like especially see this with like quick signings of bills. So I'll go back to the trans bill. That bill was passed by the House and the Senate, or the Senate and then the House, and then signed like 2 days later because the governor just didn't want to hear from people because people do email, they do call, they do show up. And so he's like, I don't want to have weeks and weeks and weeks of these people, these angry parents, these angry trans kids showing up. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign it really quickly and it'll be done. So it's like such different rhymes and reasons. Like I have two bills probably that will get hearings really soon in our like world. Like super soon. I think I'm surprised like it'll happen before January is even over. I don't know why. Like I think that Senator Hickman heard a bit about that bill when it came last year and was like, yeah, I'm still really intrigued by that. So let's do this like now. And I have another address confidentiality bill that I just got a phone call randomly during the summer. And it was from the Lieutenant Governor's office who was like, hey, Kim, we're cool with your bill. So we're going to move it over to children and families so that it can move faster. Like, I don't know. I don't know why. And who knows? I don't even know if it's actually going to pass out of the hearing, but it's getting a hearing really quickly. It's wild.
Talk more about that because I think you just hit on a key point, like whether it'll pass out of the hearing. Can we just I know we're talking about bills, the process. A few seasons ago, we had a moment where we were very excited that when you took the bill Remind me of the process of actually
Dropped
submitting
it,
it.
dropped it in the hopper.
Dropped it in the hopper, and then from there, where does it hopefully go?
Yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing we should know is that in Georgia we have a 2-year cycle. So the bills that we're actually talking about that are mine, none of them were dropped in the hopper this year, actually. I dropped these last year, and so they're still alive, which is a whole nother thing. And there's some strategy to it. Like my address confidentiality bill, which one of the two of you brilliant women will know the number of, that bill was dropped the last or the second to last day of session. Like we dropped it with no intention of it moving at all last year, but wanting what happened the summertime to be a time where people would explore things that had been dropped in the hopper that hadn't been moved, and that hopefully would spark some interest and get people moving on it, and it actually worked. So we're going to have a hearing, next week or 2 weeks from now on that bill. But it goes from the hopper, it gets read on the floor. The first reading of the bill happens. And by read, it's some young person who speaks really, really quickly and kind of reads the title of what it's about. And then it gets committed to a committee. Now, all bills are signed to a committee, but not all bills are heard in that committee. It's an important distinction. It's the lieutenant governor and his friends. 3 of his friends get together and they decide where those bills are going to be assigned to committee and their strategy in that too, right? So my address confidentiality bill, originally, it was signed to Judiciary Committee. Those of you all who followed me before know that my stalking bills always go through Judiciary. It's a hard committee, it's full of lawyers, but I can handle it. No problem.
That's right.
But we got this. We've done this. But the lieutenant governor knows that Judiciary Committee can be a tough committee to get through, and they also have a lot of bills. And so he was just like, well, let's recommit it. Let's send it from one committee to another one, Children and Families, which I also happen to be on. I'm a member of. I wonder, do I get to vote on that bill, therefore?
Hmm.
I don't know. I've never heard a bill in my own committee. So my own bill in my own committee. We'll find out. Um, but so it goes to committee. And then the secret that I did not know when I first started was you actually have to request of the chairperson to get a hearing on your bill. And then you also have to specify if you want just a hearing where they talk about the bill or if you want them to actually vote on the bill to pass it out. Because sometimes you just have a hearing, you talk about the bill. And we've seen that happen a lot actually in the House with Democrats' bills. If people have followed closely, former Senator Michelle Au, our friend, you remember from the Fab Four? So Representative Al had a hearing on Medicaid expansion. It was a hearing only. She actually conducted it outside of the committee process. She's also had a hearing only on a safe storage bill. That's how they start the conversation, but they don't actually push it forward because you don't get a vote. So there's, it's a really weedy process, and I'm glad we're talking about it.
Just a side note, our address confidentiality bill is SB 324. If you want to follow. Oh, and how do you follow? How do you follow the bills? How do you know where to look? My favorite website ever, legis.ga.gov. And it's the first thing I trained my interns on when they started 2 weeks ago. I said, you pull up this website and don't delete it. Don't X out of this website for the next 3 months. You will live on this website. And it's where you can find every single bill, every committee, the schedule, the videos that you can watch the live stream of all sessions, of all committee meetings, unless it's a closed committee. Yeah, it's great, but who knew?
Erin, one more time for the people in the back, just to make sure they know exactly how to follow. What's that website again?
Legis, legis.ga.gov.
Wonderful. Thank you. So yeah, this is really great information. It's almost like I haven't been here before. I'm so glad that we have Erin on because it really and truly, Senator Jackson just mentioned, the kind of getting into the weeds, and that's what session is. You go into the weeds, and it doesn't feel like you can get out of it until sine die. And before you get to sine die, we have crossover day. And all of that is important. Those are the important checkpoints for session because you're looking for those markers. But I think it's important to know the why and the how we get to those points. So we talked about the bills, going into the hopper, having the hearings, and all of these things. But let's get into those important markers. Like why do we really hype up crossover day, and why are having these bills make it to and through crossover day so important?
Yeah, so Erin, you will get to have your first experience of crossover day on our team, and I know you well enough to know that your organizational brain is going to be like, why is it this way? This is ridiculous. And it is all comes down to very poor time management, quite frankly. Um, but crossover day is the very last day that technically a bill has to be able to get through one chamber to the next. So one chamber being the House chamber and the other chamber being the Senate chamber. So for instance, my bill 324, maybe, yes, SB 324. I have until crossover day, which we actually know when that is. It's in February at some point. Um, we do have a calendar. I just don't remember it because it's a number, right? But I have until that deadline to get my bill heard in committee, voted out of committee, and then it has to go to the rules committee. And the rules committee is purely and solely a stopgap. Like it is their opportunity to stall your bill out. I don't know why it's called rules because it has nothing to do with the rules. In fact, I feel like they make up their own damn rules. It's wild. But I got to get it through rules committee, which really is them just saying, okay, like we're going to put it on the calendar and then on the floor and get a positive, a yes vote off the floor. I have to get all that done before crossover day in order to get it to the House so that the House can explore it in those last few weeks before we have sine die. And the same is true on the other side, right? A House bill has to go through their whole process on the House side before it can get over to the Senate. If it doesn't make that deadline, people will tell you that it's dead. But as we go through the session, we can talk later about the ways that it's not really dead. Is it dead? Not really dead.
Strategy. That's
Yeah. So
oh,
we'll get there after crossover day. I will talk to you all about all the dead things that have been suddenly revived, and it'll be great timing because it'll be like around Lent and Easter where we're thinking a lot about resurrection. And unfortunately, there'll be some things that died that should have stayed dead, but they will come back to life.
February 29th is crossover day.
my
Wait,
goodness.
isn't that leap day? Leap year day?
Oh, oh, the symbolism there.
That's so
Let-
cool.
So
It's
let's
not
hope.
a day, not even a real day. It's just a made up day. That's cool. Also, the thing to know about crossover day is that it's insane. The reason why I talk about the insanity of it is that on crossover day, we'll hear like 40, 50 bills in one day. Like
Yeah.
bills that we could have been listening to and hearing and voting on the week before in a more, manageable process, like 10 at a time. But instead, we will, vote on 2 or 3 bills. And then on crossover day, it'll be like, whew, marathon. Maybe we'll get done at 10 p.m. Who knows?
Wow. Two things, Senator Jackson. One, the just to mention the amount of bills that you guys will go through and hear. As someone who's on the floor, please give your honest, not that you don't hear, but I would love to get your initial take on, like, how reasonable is it to sit through 40 plus bills? Are you at your best by bill number 32, perhaps? Like, what is that like
Wait,
as a legislator?
now, Sharitha, I'm always at my best. Uh,
That's right.
always. No, I mean, so there's a lot of caffeine that gets, spread around that day. Erin will help make sure that I have my favorite choice of caffeine available to me on that day. And I do a lot of prep. So, by the time I walk in the crossover day and the time we walk in the sine die, which are the 2 marathon days where we have stupid amounts of bills on the floor, The whole team, this is the Team Jackson team, also the Mag 7, which y'all will hear more about, and we'll try to get some Mag 7 folks on during the course of this pod. But there's a group of 7 senators. We all will get together and we will go through all of those bills beforehand, and we actually make a color-coded spreadsheet. So this might be discouraging to some people. What that actually means is that I'm not paying attention necessarily to the speech and the debates, because we've already analyzed and made decisions and read thoroughly and researched those bills before they got on the floor. So there's very rare that anybody could say anything from the well that's gonna have any influence on how we vote. So on those days, really, I'm just waiting. Like, I'm listening for the bells, because the bells go off to tell us when it's time to vote. I might be I might be completely on the other side of the room. I might be at the ropes talking to somebody. That's one of the ways you get to talk to legislators. And Erin can tell a little bit more about how that works. But I'm listening for those bells. And as soon as the bells go off, I go to my desk, I pull up my spreadsheet, look for the number, the color. If the color is green, I press green and I leave. If the color is red, I press red and I book out of there. So it's, but for those who don't do prep, it's not optimal. I mean, it's horrible. And it's still a long day. And maybe I could learn more if I did like listen to the speeches. I don't know. But that's the way that we've figured out best to manage such a high flow, high volume of bills. Yeah. Eh, Yeah, Erin.
Well, can I revise my answer to a previous question, which
Of
was,
course.
what is the most surprising thing? Sharitha, you asked, what is the most surprising? And I actually revise it to this topic, exactly this topic, which is what actually happens on the Senate chamber floor. When I walked up to the gallery last year for the first time in my life, the gallery is the 4th floor of the Capitol, and it is where citizens can go to watch. And you sit up in the top, and if anyone's been following Tennessee at all, that it's all over the news about people, packing the gallery up there and whatever. So it's a great place. You go up and you watch, and you get to observe. And the very first time that I did this, I looked down, and no one is in their seat. It is so loud, but we're not allowed to be loud up in the gallery. But the downstairs, I mean, it is like, um, Kim, I don't know if you know this, but the very first time I met your wife, Trina, when I had to interview with her for this position, she said, it's like a casino. The Capitol is like a casino. So get ready, buckle up and get ready.
That's
And
so true.
I didn't understand what that meant really, but I got a small taste that first time I was up there. I mean, it is so loud, and people talking and moving and walking and try, and it's because all of you are trying to figure out the bills that are coming up and what information you need from this senator about this bill, and but I was absolutely shocked. Or half of you are outside the doors on the ropes, talking to constituents, talking to lobbyists. They're pleading their cases. If you want to get a hold of a senator, you can try to come by the office for sure, but during session, it's rare that Senator Jackson is in our office. I don't see her very much throughout the day. It's great if I get 15 minutes of her time, and I don't want to book other people during my 15 minutes with her. So if you want to meet with a senator, you go over to the Capitol to the 3rd floor where the doors to the chamber are. And there's literally a rope. I heard like working the ropes. It's like a thing, but it's actually a literal rope. You stand on one side and you submit a little piece of paper and you hand it to a little 12-year-old kid who is a page for the day, and they run in and they give it to the senator, and the senator chooses whether they have time to come out and talk to you, and they literally just walk out during session, during floor speeches, during whatever. They walk out and talk to the constituents or whoever's there waiting for them. That, I would say, was the most shocking kind of process. I thought it was going to be a much more serious, somber, quiet event,
Oh,
like, oh, the people actually listening to the people, and because when you watch it on live stream, it is very quiet because they only pick up the mic of the person speaking up front. You have
Right.
no idea that the room is really actually like a bird cage with like birds flapping around all over the place.
Oh,
yeah.
I love this
I,
insight.
It's wild. I actually I requested that Senate Press when we vote. So if you're watching on the live stream, it used to be that they would just show the screen of all of our names and they would wait a full minute and then it'd light up and show how we voted. So it was just like really dead space for a minute. And so I asked Senate Press, I'm like, there's so much activity that's happening on the floor in that minute's worth of time. Would you all be willing to show that instead of just like focusing on a screen that doesn't change for a minute? Would you change the camera angle so people can see what's happening on the floor? And so now I think they do like a bifurcated screen so you can see that there's, some movement happening. But I mean, people change votes in that minute. Like you look over and look across the way and you see that your friend who you trust is like has a different color than you. And so there's some switching that happens, or there's somebody who's walking around, with their thumbs up or thumbs down. It's wild for that 1 minute too, because even though I might have pretty fixed answers because I've got my spreadsheet, particularly on crossover day, but the rest of the time I don't, and people are still bargaining and convincing, and yeah, it is very wild. And I will say, Sharita, as a person who speaks publicly on a weekly basis and preaches. I preach in the park with Sharitha, right? Like you know this. It is preaching at common ground in a park where there are sirens that go off, where there could be a fight in the background, is still a much easier context to preach in than it is to speak from the well. There are at least 20 more people listening at common ground, despite all of the stuff that's going on around us, than there are on the floor. It's wild.
I think that is an excellent way to segue into my second question that I had earlier, because we're using terms. Well, one, Senator Jackson, I also think this is why in our previous episode you referred to session as a returning to the box office, because it feels like almost reality TV a little bit, but we've been using terms like the well, right? The ropes and things like that, being in the gallery. I don't want to assume that our listeners fully know what that is. We may have some new folks. What does it mean? I mean, you gave your first speech from the well a few years ago, which was so exciting. And I remember pausing multiple times and I'm just like, what well? Is she down a well like Lassie? Like, what is going? Does she need help? Is she okay?
Yeah.
Why? So can we talk more about, the well? Erin really touched on the meaning of the ropes and being able to go up. That was an excellent visual, but I would love to learn more about that. We talked about you having a page. Can you touch on that just a little bit more and what those things actually mean?
Yeah, so the well, it's an old term. The way that the chamber is set up, it's kind of like auditorium style in terms of its slope. So all of, everything, I sit in the back, so I sit uphill slightly from where the well is. So it's really just the lowest point in the chamber space. And that is where the podium and the microphone is from which we as electeds are able to speak from. And it's called the well in part because of that design, right? The design of the space architecturally, that is the point before they had amplification. That was the place where people could hear you best because it was in the center at the bottom of that well. So that's what the well is. Elected officials, senators speak from the well. The presiding officers actually speak from above us at a podium that's behind us. So it's a different place. You never see the lieutenant governor speak from the well. That's not his position. He's higher, he's above us. The preacher of the day, which, I get to be on occasion, and I'll have a preacher of the day that will come. We start every session with a preacher or a rabbi or an imam. Some person of faith comes and gives some inspirational words. They speak from the podium because, again, the podium is, the well is reserved for senators. So that's the well. The gallery is it's really the balcony. Like it's the balcony that overlooks all the action. There are rules for the gallery that I did not know until I had to go sit in the house gallery once because I had on jeans. um which oh yeah, and there's a dress code.
Oh, yeah.
There's a dress code. The Senate's dress code is different than the House's dress code. It's absurd. But in the gallery, like you can't have your phone out. Aaron, what else is like you can't
No laptops.
no laptops, no phone, you can't talk. I feel like you can't chew gum. I don't know. It's like And the people who
Hard.
monitor the game, yeah, there's like a card that you get that tells you the rules in the gallery, and it's like everybody's like librarian who's up there, not the nice librarians though, but like the stern librarians who are in the gallery to make sure you abide by those rules.
May I don't want us to miss this because you talked about having on jeans and not being able to be in the gallery. Can you remind us of why that happened?
So in the Senate, we have what's called John Bullock Day. John Bullock is a former state senator who's long retired. I don't know, he might even have gone on the glory, who knows. But when we are in session on certain Fridays, we have John Bullock Day, and that is the day where we all get to wear denim or jeans. And it's always announced. So whenever we have it, like, I take advantage of it. So on one particular Friday, it was John Bullock Day in the Senate, so I was wearing jeans, but the House was hearing a bill that I wanted to listen to and I wanted to be on the floor for. Senators can go on the House floor, like we're permitted, we have a special designated session, but we're permitted to be on the floor, except not if you're wearing jeans. And I'm like, but we can wear jeans in the Senate, and they're very clear. No, you can do what you do in the Senate, but our rules are our rules in the House, and there are no jeans allowed on the floor. Also, by the way, you also have to wear a jacket on the floor, required if you're going to be on the floor in the Senate. So on John Bullock Day, people wear denim jeans and a jacket. It is like mandatory for the men. Now, women, we're very loosey goosey. We don't have to wear jackets. And so it's a lot better. But no, a tie and a jacket is required at all times on the floor. Those are not the rules for the gallery. You can wear jeans in the gallery.
Well, I just wanted to bring that back up because it almost, and I recall this moment happening, it almost seemed quite strategic during the time because it was a it was a very important bill that was being heard at that time, and it seemed like a lot of the advocates, a lot of the heavy hitters, couldn't actually be on the floor because of this rule, because it took place at a certain time. So I thought it was a little bit of strategy happening there at the Capitol.
I think it
So.
really just points to like how vastly different the House and the Senate is. Like the Senate side, which is what you guys get to hear about from me all the time, and we're just we have moments where we're less formal. I mean, I think we have a lot of moments where we're less formal. The chaos that you see on the Senate side in terms of just like everybody talking and milling around, that happens on the House some, but there are only 56 of us. So we can be a little looser. The House has got 180 people, so they're a little more structured. There's a little less rowdiness. There are not a lot of jokes out of the podium like there are from our lieutenant governor. It's a really different culture, and there is no culture of ever wearing jeans on the House side. Whereas, we just have a little bit more fun. We're a little lighter, a little looser on the Senate side, I think. Erin's laughing because I'm very biased about this.
Gotcha. Well, guys, as always, it's important. We like to honor time, and we also like to offer up an opportunity for Senator Jackson as well as you, Erin, to share some of the things that we should be looking forward to as we continue to move through this session. This is only week 2, which is technically budget week. So, what are some things that we need to kind of look ahead?
Yeah, so be looking out. I'm always, people listen to this podcast because I want to hear what I'm doing, I think, I hope. And so be looking out. We will have special asylees or special humanitarian parolees. It's a huge deal that we are going to have these hearings. I know for my in-state tuition bill, we have a commitment for a vote. There will be a vote. And there'll be a lot of people there. I also know I will get some hate from this. So would love to get some love from folks. I already know that the extremists on the right believe that my bill is letting is letting non-American citizens, what they would call illegals in air quotes, break the line in order to go to our state schools. That will be the language. That will be the rhetoric. You're going to hear it directly from the hearing because there's a man on the committee, Colton Moore, Senator Moore, who's my neighbor. He sits behind me and his office is across the street from me. I mean, across the hall from me. Sometimes we're friendly. No, we're always friendly. Sometimes we're friends. Anyway, he's going to piss all over my bill. It's not going to be pretty. So would love to get some love and support around that bill. And it'll be coming up in 2 weeks.
Ways that you can support those bills. This is the tuition bill is SB 264. It is coming up in the Higher Education Committee. It'll be heard in higher education. So you can go on legis.ga.gov, go to committees, Senate committees, and you can keep track of when higher ed is meeting. They meet on Wednesdays at 1 or 2. 1 or 2. I don't know.
Sure.
You are allowed to come down here for those, you being anyone listening to this. And that's what Senator Jackson means by support. It's hard to speak to an empty room. And if you are there, she knows and feel the energy for her time speaking. And we have some really wonderful people coming to also support and speak on that bill. And then the other one is SB 324, and that's the address confidentiality, and that is in children and families. And I can't off the top of my head remember which day that's going to be, but it'll be the same week, I believe, which is a big load that Senator Jackson has to carry. So again, children and families and higher education committees, be on the lookout for those schedules, and you can research them yourself, and you can also follow our social media. We will be posting like crazy, trying to get people down to support us for that.
And thank you, Erin, for extending that invitation. As always, guys, follow us at Kim for Georgia on all social media platforms. I really think that you raise a good point with this invitation to come and support. When Senator Jackson began her journey when she was first sworn in, we were still at the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Things were very different. So to kind of see this transition where the Capitol is like a casino again, and we often use the word buzz, like it's so many people buzzing around, and it's continuous chatter happening, and it's a beautiful sight compared to where this journey began. And so I'm so grateful that you have extended that invitation of in-person support. It's just as crucial as listening to this podcast. That said,
Can I just really quickly, I just want to say, coming to the Capitol can feel really intimidating. And so if you want to come down to support and to show up for this bill, feel free to reach out directly. Our Chief of Staff, Erin, who will be happy. You can come to my office. It's in CLOB Club 321. And we can walk together. Like we can make this as easy as possible. And then when I have the date, the transformative moment for Erin was when All Saints and St. Luke's together came down for an advocacy day at the Capitol. They're going to do that again this year. And it's a nice, easier way to enter into learning how you call somebody to the ropes or figuring out a bit more about this process. And so we'll be sure to talk about what that date is when I have it, and to invite folks as well. Oh, look, Erin already knows it. It's March 5th. So March 5th, block that on your calendar. It's in the morning, but come down. They're nice people. You don't need to be an Episcopalian. You certainly don't need to be a member of anybody's church, because we are Episcopalians. So we expect you not to necessarily be a member of anybody's church. So come. It's just an easier way to begin to enter the casino and learn the ropes. So feel free, drop by our office. We will escort you to our committee meetings, or come on March 5th for the advocacy day, where you can have somebody kind of hold your hand and guide you through the process.
okay. Well, that said, I think that is a wonderful call to action and a great way to conclude this time. As always, you guys have been listening to another fantastic session, fantastic episode of God, Goats, and Government.
Until next time, be easy. Please like, subscribe, and share this pod with your friends. We really appreciate y'all. Take care.